Yes, so we're back with question 11. And not to sound too weird, but this is my favorite question in the whole paper. It's a nice, meaty question, gives you a chance to really show you know what's going on. And it's kind of like one of those questions that people were complaining about that they didn't have, which is, that meat and bones of what is in the syllabus. So I think it's a really great question. The downside is it's worth 9 marks, which is a bit of a killer if you've got no idea what's going on. That could really have messed you up. But hopefully you had some idea. So anyway, this is question 11. Name and describe 3 methods of implementing a new computer system. For each one, describe the type of situation where each method might be used. Again, fantastic question. So we've got three things we need to do, and we've got 3 methods we have to say. So, and that's our 9 marks. So it's nice and clear exactly where we're getting it from. We're getting a point for naming, we're getting a point for describing, and we're getting a point for the example for each of the 3. Lovely, nice, clear question. Okay, so let's start by just naming. So we've got the 4 possible options for systems analysis changeovers or implementations. And the common ones are, I imagine a few people did direct. Parallel is going to be another common one. And then you can either have pilot or phased. Okay, so I'm going to do all 4 here, which is obviously overkill, but just you can go with it. Direct, okay, so you try not to use the word in the title, but you get the idea. You can do the English part yourselves. Directly changing from the old system to the new system with no backup. Okay, parallel. Running both systems concurrently, or we'll just say at the same time, so that we have a backup for the new system if it fails. Pilot. Okay, pilot. We're going to be testing or say fully running the system, and it does help to often to mark off your answers. If you're underlining or something, make it easier for the examiner, and they're more likely to be easy on you. Okay, fully running the system in one part of the company or business or organization of the organization to see if it works before rolling it out to all parts of the organization. And phased. Okay, so gradually implementing different parts of the system to check if each part is working correctly before running the whole system. Gradually adding different parts of the system to check if each part is working correctly before running, I won't say before running, working up to running the whole system. Okay, so we've got direct, change from one to the other, parallel, both at the same time, pilot, try it out on one place, if it works, everywhere, phased, we're going to take part of the system try out that part of the system. If that works, then we'll bring in the next part of the system, and the next part of the system, and the next part, until we have the whole thing. So far, we're doing okay. Now, here's the tricky bit, and I actually quite like it, but it's a bit newish. Give a situation where each method might be used. So, let's start with direct. Directly changing from the old system to the new system. You could say might be used in a small, low-risk situation. Situation where the not effects, where the results, where there's a word I'm looking for that I can't remember, where the is not so great. I'm sure I'll come back to that word if I remember. Where the damage, I'm going to put damage, but it's the wrong word, but it will do for now. For example, a small shop changing from a paper-based or cash-based payment to having a card option. Okay, so something like this where it's not going to be disastrous. Let's space that out so we can see what's going on. Parallel, running both systems at the same time so we have a backup of the system sales. Okay. For use in a high-risk system where cost is where the risks or the dangers, where the dangers are more than the costs. For example, in a hospital where people's lives are at risk if the system fails. We could also put in here, sorry, just I know I sometimes jump back and forwards, but might be used in a small, low-risk situation where the damage is not so great, and there is not much money available. So you're really just trying to do the advantages and disadvantages, but give it a bit of prose, give it a bit of wordiness to explain what's going on. Pilot, okay, running one part of the organization to see if it works before rolling it out to all parts of the organization. Would be used where cost and risk are more balanced, and in a situation where, I keep spelling that wrong as well, where parts of the company operate independently. Okay, for example, multinational shipping company with small offices around the world. So effectively we could try it out in the Beijing offices before we do it in the Jakarta offices, before we then do it in the wherever offices. We could try it out maybe in the smallest one and then move on to somewhere else. And phased. Gradually adding different parts of the system to check if each part is working correctly. We're running up towards the whole system. This is also useful where cost and risk are somewhat balanced. So what would be the difference between pilot? It's the advantage of this is that we can identify the errors better. We can gradually train up staff. So let's go with that one. And in a situation where we want to be able to identify any failures as they come in, and where we want chances for people to gradually learn the new system. Okay, so we could do that. For example, a large office that wants to make a big change to their system, but doesn't want too much disruption. Okay, and again, this is probably a bit of overkill in some places. Again, I don't know if the example is specifically necessary, because it just says describe a situation. But again, it's always better to put in a little bit too much than not enough. Okay, anyway, great question. It's a fun one. Okay, let's go on to the next.